Hi, Dad.
Yeah, a different way might be the operative words tonight. Now, I have not seen any violence. I have not seen any reason to believe that there's any civil unrest here. Just now, people have started to shoot off fireworks akin to what you would see at the 4th of July. I don't know if it's just because they had them. There's a small campfire that's been staged here, and over here, you're starting to see what that looks like. It's like there's a guy in a pickup, and he's pulled off to the side going 35W north, and he's obviously got fireworks, which would be very similar to what you'd see a fire station use on the 4th of July around a lake. The people seem to like it. They're oohing and aahing. What we can see are cars that cannot go any further down 35W and a small fire in the middle of it. I would estimate the crowd of protesters here at about 200 or so, and then many more on the off-ramp. So you don't get the sense that violence is about to erupt or anything like that, only that this has been incredibly disruptive here in the 35W and Washington area of downtown Minneapolis.
Maxie, have you seen any sort of police presence or the National Guard or anything like that around there? Not even down on the highway?
I have not seen any. We are, as you can see how far we are away, but I have not seen.
Mike, are you okay?
Yeah, we're okay. That was just an overzealous observer coming through, and then I heard music in my ear, and I thought we had to wrap. And you can also see on the off-ramp here people coming down here that are working their way up because there's nowhere to go. So they're blocking traffic, but it's not a huge group. Why? Is there anybody see any police presence down there or not? No. I don't either, yeah. I don't see.
Protesters, those are looters. Know the difference.
I don't see any police presence down there or National Guard anywhere to be seen unless they're in unmarked cars, but certainly that doesn't seem to be the case. So it has been a peaceful protest as far as we've seen so far, and there's no reason to believe that's going to escalate beyond that. Of course, we said that last night as well, and we did see in the UPS truck, as I mentioned, people jumped on the back, got in the back, and started to throw merchandise out the back as it proceeded down 35 South, but the UPS truck was able to at least get on its way, probably the least of its concerns right now.
Maxie, I heard, I think a young lady speaking to you, was she saying that those aren't protesters, those are looters? I couldn't hear what she was saying.
Well, it's getting a little bit confusing here because someone will come by and say it's all peaceful protesters. Someone else has said, oh, those aren't protesters down there, those are looters. I don't see them as looters down there. I think those are peaceful protesters because I don't see that they're taking anything or doing damage to anything. Okay. Now the fire's getting bigger. I see. So now the fire is getting bigger that you can see, and I'm not sure what they're burning. The big concern now would be with vehicles right around, if any of those vehicles start on fire, or if any of them are put on fire. So it's kind of hard to separate right now who's down here to peacefully protest and who's down here to do damage, or if they were started well-intentioned and now you can see what's evolved. It's a pretty robust fire that started as just a small fire. The concern now will be, will they start grabbing things? Will they start throwing things on it? Will they make it worse? I do see a squad car in the distance across the other side of the freeway. I don't know if it has any intention of coming down here at all, because all that I can see from here, I don't see any squad cars. I don't see anyone in uniform. I only see protesters, and then up on the bridge above, you can see that traffic has stopped to an extent. I think most people just observing what they can see because the fire's caught their eye, and the fire is so big now and blazing. And like I said, it's not that far. It's not in the danger zone, but it's not that far from vehicles that have been forced off to the side of the road and really have nowhere to go. Most of those people have either abandoned their vehicle or is just standing somewhere near, but trying to be careful for sure. And then I can see a couple of vehicles over here. If you could pan over here, we can't quite tell if people are doing any damage to those vehicles, if those are the owners, but it looks like they're taking a fence or some partition from the actual freeway itself, and they're holding it, and I don't know what their intent is there or why they have that. It doesn't have anything to do with the car, I don't think, and I can't tell if that's some temporary fencing or something that they took down from an overpass sign,
Mike,
but certainly... yeah.
You know, we actually have another camera from a traffic cam, and we have a vantage point with a reverse shot of where you are. And it almost looks like the frame to a tent that you'd set up to set up one of those kind of like temporary tents or awnings that you'd be under. I don't know if it's makeshift or it's from a kit, but they're kind of putting that together right in the middle of the highway. I mean, from what I can tell, every lane is blocked. There's not a car getting through there.
No, it's possible it's a tent, and it's possible because it looks like the same kind of framing that they have on the overpass as well. So I don't know if something fell, but it looks very similar in terms of structure to the framing you see for what normally would hold signs but doesn't right now. Right above it right there, it looks like it kind of matches it. Either way, though, Frank, to your point, you're right. They have shut down traffic both ways now. Initially, it was just 35W south. Now they've shut it down to the north as well. There's a vehicle in the middle of the road, 35W north, and it has just turned perpendicular to it as if to either send a signal to the oncoming traffic not to proceed, or it's just waving the white flag and saying, I'm going to hold out here because I don't want to take my chances by driving any further. But the number of people here hasn't really changed, but the energy level has since they started the fire and since they jumped on the UPS truck and then started to throw things off the back of it. But I have not seen any acts of violence or anything that would threaten someone so far. I have only seen the intensity of the audio really has gone up a little bit as they continue to chant, and I think that has a lot to do with what their acts have been, both jumping on the UPS truck and the fire that they started has kind of energized this crowd. But there's a whole bunch more that are with us on the off-ramp, and they're simply observing, many of them taking video of it as they watch, because it does feel so historic.
And still no police presence, so you don't hear any sirens or anything, or see any evidence.
I wonder if you work the CIA though.
Nope, haven't seen any sirens. Haven't seen any. Have you seen any police down there?
No, they see nothing there.
So the police are setting a barricade up on the other side of the freeway, huh?
Yeah, you can see it when you walk down about 10 feet.
Okay, so let's see if we can get a shot of this. Will, can you get a shot?
What they call controlled anarchy.
They're setting it up to, I think, stay on the perimeter and stay far away, but there's a police presence quite some distance from here. I don't know how well we can pick it up, or if the overhead cam can at all, but it appears there's a couple of squad cars up there, and I don't know if they're simply watching. My guess would be they're observing, and they can see, and if anything escalates, they can make their way down.
When tyranny is realized at its finest point, man, you know?
So yeah,
People are speaking out loud.
The people are speaking very loud here, is right, and like I said, there's been no reason for panic here, and there's been no pandemonium. And Frank, you are right. If we can go back, that is a tent that they've set up over here. They've now got it. And I don't know what the intent, pardon the pun, is of it, but they've set up what would be the same as you'd put up in your backyard, and it's a tent, and they're going to put some awning around it, and I don't know what the purpose is there, if it's just to stop traffic or if it's a statement. It's hard to say, but you're right. Somebody must have physically had a tent in their vehicle, and I don't know if that person volunteered it to the captive audience, or if somebody brought it, or if somebody stole it from somewhere, or if it came off that UPS truck that I said earlier. There were boxes flying, and you don't know what was in the back. It very well could have come from there too, and they just opened it off the box. But they're setting up a tent, and I have no reasonable explanation as to why they would do that, or what they would find that would do beyond shut down some more traffic. I don't see it as a safe haven or anything else.
You don't see a lot of camping on the freeway, Mike.
No.
You're right about that.
Hey, Mike,
No.
I know that you said you had a lot of people there, and this is, we've had a curfew that's supposed to be at 8 o'clock, take place at 8 o'clock, but you were saying there are a lot of people who are standing there with you alongside watching all this. Are those people along with this peaceful protest, or are those people just coming to see what is going on? Do you know?
Here come a number of protesters walking up right now. We're going to walk back a little bit here because I don't know if anything could escalate out of this. They're just leaving the freeway now and walking up the on-ramp. I don't know why they have chosen to do that right now, but a whole bunch of the protesters are now walking our way up the up-ramp. Most of the people that have been standing on it have been just observing, many of them taking pictures and video video on their phone. Now, for whatever reason, everybody is dispersing from the scene of the protest. They've left.
from what we can see.
The traffic is moving on 35 north, and I don't know why that would be, except there was a car park for some reason right in the middle of right in the middle of it. But it looks like is the protest is it over? Is everybody dispersed?
It ain't over. It's never over. We need justice.
No justice, no.
So there you go. And so everybody is leaving calmly. I mean, whatever it was that they set out to accomplish, apparently they did. And they're just simply walking slowly and nothing out of the ordinary from the freeway and up the off-ramp where there were many observers. But you can see many of these people were in the middle of it on 35W, and they've now chosen to disperse. And I'm not exactly sure why. We'll see if we can get some information on that. But
This is the man right here. This is the man.
And we've got some good sports fans apparently here too. Frank and
We'll check it back in with you in a little bit.
We want to be heard.
Thank you.